Welcome everybody. SF Live, episode number 40 already. It's Friday. My name is Kai Hoffman. I'm the CEO of the Soar Financial Group. In a minute, I'll be joined by Heye Daun. He's the CEO of Osino Resources Corp. But before we get started, before we get to our conversation, please make sure to use hashtag AskOSI, that's the company's ticker, for your questions while we're live streaming. We'll get to those after a quick chat with Heye. Also, make sure to follow us here on Twitter, obviously, but also subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can find our content also on Instagram, but also on Spotify and other podcast channels afterwards. We'll upload this conversation to those platforms. Now, it's my distinct pleasure to introduce Heye. Heye is the CEO of Osino Resources, and you're in Cape Town right now, Heye. How are things? How are you doing?
Thank you very much, Kai. It's great to be on your show. It's exciting and actually almost a bit nerve-wracking, actually.
No, that's great. And let's dive right into the conversation. We created SF Live to keep investors informed about what companies are doing during COVID. We're now 10 weeks or something in. I lost absolute track of it, and holidays and weekends are the same as a working day. How have things affected Osino? And give us an update on that.
Yeah, thanks. In fact, they haven't affected us that much because we used the lockdown productively. You know, our technical team, we just shut them down. We stopped drilling. But we used the time to do some quality, work in the office, thinking work and interpretive work. And then recently, 2 or 3 weeks ago, we started drilling again. So yes, we got delayed a little bit, but we're catching up. We're adding drill rigs to still come out the same at the end of the year.
Good point, actually. Drill rigs. You were planning a 20,000 meter program before COVID hit, and I think you drilled for like a week before you had to pull out again. Give us an update on the plans there. Also, you raised a ton of money, and we'll get to that in a second as well. But what are the plans spending that money now? Are you going to maybe accelerate the drill program? Give us an update.
Okay, so broadly speaking, for all exploration companies, exploration is an iterative process. You drill, generate data, then you step back, look at it, interpret, and you carry on drilling. And you can't get around that. So, we made the discovery in August last year. We had some very good follow-on results at the end of the year, which we followed up with the financing. And then in sort of January, February, we did exactly that, regrouping, stepping back, thinking about the next steps. We formulated that 20,000 meter plan, and then we got drilling in March. We did 4 holes, which we've just announced, and then we had to stop. So now the plan is still to do 20,000 meters this year, at least, and we can do that quite comfortably by just drilling basically continuously. Previously we had a shutdown plan in between. We're not going to do that. But from my perspective, I want to drill as much as possible. So at the moment, I'm pushing. The geos are sort of resisting a little bit because they're being cautious, and that's positive friction that we have. But yeah, 20,000 meters is the plan. I'm hoping we'll do some more.
Oh, fantastic. And drill costs in Namibia are extremely low right now, I understand. Can you give us some details there?
Yes. We got this exchange rate benefit, which I've spoken about on some shows elsewhere. We're tied to the South African rand, and that's a very weak emerging market currency. So we've had a big devaluation in the last 10 years, actually. And so that's good for us because Osino raises money in Canadian dollars, but spends money in Namibian dollars. So our drill costs are around $75 Canadian per meter. So we get a lot of bang for our buck. You asked me earlier about that financing. So, we raised $14 million in Jan. We have about, the financials are coming out tomorrow, I think, or the day after. We have about 12
You're stealing
and a half.
all my questions. Yep. Heye. Those are all my questions. Fantastic. That's good. That's good information.
Okay. I just wanted to, so we're going to spend basically about half of the money that we have between now and the end of the year. So we will still be left in a very comfortable position at the end of the year. But if my wish comes true, which is accelerate the drilling and there are some big ticket items that might be coming up, like, for example, acquisition of surface rights and stuff like that. Then we might go through that money somewhat quicker. But yeah, we are really well set up. We can do everything we need to do in terms of drilling and technical studies, etc. So things are really being accelerated right now.
Fantastic. Let's come back to the 4 holes that you mentioned that you announced yesterday. Right, run us through those real quick, and I do have I'm personally very interested in the hole that wasn't as great as the others. So,
okay, I think you shouldn't get sidetracked on that one, but I'll try and explain. Okay. The twin hill system, the architecture. I'm moving my hands here; you can't see it, but it's one side of a syncline. A syncline is like an elongated bowl, and the one side is mineralized, and we drilled sort of perpendicular through it. So therefore, our package is like 50 to 150 meters thick, this way, and we're drilling through it. So at times, as you sort of prick a fence through that, if you excuse my language here and my description, you may hit it or you may miss it. So, for example, one or two of the holes miss because we just got the top of that package, but we've already drilled additional holes deeper. We've actually drilled a very deep one, a 400-meter hole, and some others to intersect it elsewhere. So the fact that we missed some is neither here nor there. So that's why I think like to focus on that hole is actually
so
the
fear that the deposit is cut off to the southwest right now is not warranted.
No, I think it is the big question at the moment, which we can't answer, no one can answer, is how big is Twin Hills Central going to be? Because generally these things they swell and pinch. So eventually it's going to pinch out. It's all undercover. We haven't done the work, so it's hard to say. The footprint that we have right now is significant already. It's already justifies a sort of 1 to 2 million ounce envelope. Obviously that's the forward-looking statement. We have done the 43-101 work, etc., etc. That's what, with the footprint that we have now, it's feasible to get to those sort of numbers. But there's nothing to suggest that it couldn't be quite a lot bigger than that. So, but only drilling will prove that.
Okay, and the exploration program, the 20,000 meters, are they solely focused on Twin Hills?
Yeah, when we talk about Twin Hills, Twin Hills is a big system, and the future resource is Twin Hills Central. But think of it like a string of pearls. I think Nick Germain came up with this term, and I'm really thankful to him for that. So the main pearl is in the middle, and we got these satellite pearls on that string. So the drilling program is going to be about 2/3 Twin Hills Central, which is like making it better and bigger, and then about 1/3 discovery, which is trying to find satellites on the rest of the Twin Hills system, which is kind of a 15-kilometer radius.
And how many meters do you think you'll need to come up with a resource, maybe by the end of the year or Q1 next year?
So at the moment, our plan, I think we said it in the press release, is to put out a resource, I say first half of next year, to give myself a bit of gap. But the plan is certainly to put something out before PDAC next year. And with the drilling that we're doing now, it's going to be enough to do that. So I'm highly confident that we will be able to do this. The question is just how big will it be and what will the grade be? Yeah, I don't know if that answers your question. So yeah, we have...
Okay. No, of course. And you'll figure that out during the course of the program, right? So it's more timeline regarded, and you're planning to do that. So that's important.
Exactly. I know some of you guys, some of the listeners, they do their own sort of modeling, and they look at our plans. And if you look at the little drill dots on those diagrams, you got to get them down to 50 by 100 meters. That's the inferred stage in our environment. So we've done that calculation, and the drilling that we're planning for Twin Hills Central for the next couple of months is sufficient to do that.
Okay, we're jumping around a little bit, but I want to talk a little more about the financing and just about your shareholder structure. You did the financing before PDAC, so that was important, obviously, because after PDAC, we sort of all fell in a hole, and the financing window just opened up again maybe 2-3 weeks ago. Who has come in? Like, where did the interest come from? Where did you see investors or investor demand coming from?
Okay, so Kai, I think you know, but I'll say it again. The company Osino was started up with my family's money, Ross Beatty's money, and the first institution was Resource Capital Funds out of Denver. But the rest were really high net worth and retail investors. So that's what got us going. This financing that you ask about now that we did in January was 90%, almost exclusively large institutions. So basically the who's who. I can mention a couple of the big ones were Earth Resources, Merck, Linwood. I'm jumping back and forth, but well-known, Century Select, Mackenzie, etc. All the good names are there. Was that your question?
Yeah, so no, it was also just to see, because my interest is also tracking generalist interest demand in our sector.
Right? Interesting. Yes,
because we are like a high risk sector, and it was super easy to make 20-25% in the S&P every year. So there was no need to invest in our high risk sector because it was super easy to make that. You get your returns right in your 401k plans. So now I'm curious, because you can't make those 25% right now, or at least it seems so if the generalists are coming back, right? So that was more the question where I was going with my inquiry there.
So definitely some of the generalists came in, but there's a key feature that a lot of people haven't picked up. And that is, the financing we did was prospectus based. It's kind of like a bought deal, even though it wasn't a bought deal. And that makes it immediately free trading. And that's key because those institutions don't like the 4-month hold stock that a lot of your listeners are used to. And that's why if you've got the if you've got the capability to do that style of financing, it's just way better because we've got none of that 4-month hold, all those shenanigans that you guys are familiar with, none of that.
No, exactly. And especially since we were tracking the COVID crisis, and I spoke to a Hecla CEO the other day, and they saw in January already when Trump closed the borders that stuff was going to hit the fan, right? So trying to keep it PG here. But so that's, I think, a smart move. And it's interesting to see that interest and how it's progressing, and not having that 4-month hold makes a lot of sense, and taking that away. Oftentimes for me, it's even a reason not to invest in a company because you don't know what's coming up. Like, you can't just put that money in there for 4 months. So that makes sense. I'm just going through the questions here. You started, one thing I noticed with the drilling and the results you put out, and that's interesting to mention maybe because of the COVID crisis, was the turnaround time of the drill results. Because in a May 4th press release, you mentioned that one of the 4 holes still needed to be shipped. And then you announced the holes like 3 weeks later. That's an incredible turnaround time. Do you have some more details on that, and whether COVID impacted you there? So.
Yeah, sure. Generally speaking, the turnaround time on drilling, I think it's internationally, it's about more or less like this. It takes about, you drill a hole, takes about a week or 2 to batch it with some others, another week or 2 to process it and ship it. And then typically the real lab turnaround is around 4 weeks. Our samples go to Canada, actually to Ontario. And so, on average, it takes us 8 weeks. But if there's an individual hole in between, the labs can help you, and they can sometimes actually turn it around in a week. And that's actually how we managed to achieve this, what you asked me about.
Yeah, no, I just noticed that something that jumped out, and 3-week turnaround time from shipping in Namibia. I think you're shipping it to Canadian labs. Is that correct?
Yes, we've got a small family-owned lab, and they're just great. We're a big client of theirs, and they really make an effort to help us.
Oh, fantastic! No, that's great to hear. You answered my question about the Q1 financials, because I was trying to look them up just before our interview, and we're coming up to the June 1st deadline. So you mentioned they're coming out tomorrow, next couple of days, I guess. What day is it? Friday. So, yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly. We approved them last night. We had a board meeting, but yeah, next couple of days they'll come out as normal.
Okay. Before we get to the questions of our Twitter followers, and also we got a couple of questions from CO.ca, I wanted to ask you something that's been irking me, or it's been in the back of my mind ever since you did an interview with Bill Powers on mining stock education. By the way, great guy to follow as well. He does great interviews. Back in October, when the conversation was about compensation of CEOs and how relevant and whether it's inflated and all that. But you said something that sort of stood out to me, and maybe I misunderstood, and I wanted to I was hoping you clarified for me. But part of the reason we accepted the offer, that was when you sold Oryx to B2Gold, was because of the change of control payments. Right, because the conversation was about control payments and change of control, how it's getting out of hand. Let's talk about change of control for a second, like that part. Because I'm quoting you directly. Like, part of the reason we accepted it was because of the change of control payments. Do you think you could clarify that a little bit? Because I think I personally misunderstood that one.
Yes, I think you did. And thank you for the opportunity to clarify this, because sometimes when you're on air, say things and maybe don't put it in perspective. Really what I was saying is, think about it practically. When we had Oryx Gold back then in 2012, we had a project. We had $45 million in the bank, which we had raised cash. We were flying around the world business class, going to conferences, having a lot of fun, earning a good salary. Why give that up? In comes an offer from B2Gold. They want to buy the company arguably at the time we felt the offer was too low. So the propensity on the CEO at that time would have been possibly to turn it down. And that would have been very detrimental to shareholders, because, shortly afterwards, gold fell into a hole, and we may have gone bankrupt in the following years. We may have built the mine, maybe not. So what I'm saying is, the change of control payment conceptually is there to make that easier for the management team, so that they know if they give up their cushy jobs, they're looked after for a year, 2 years, 3 years. That's typically like an acceptable change of control payment. That's really what I was trying to explain. It makes that easier, that decision. Whereas if you sell yourself out of a job, why do that?
Good point. No, actually, that's a good point. And thanks for clarifying that, because that's in the back of my head, and I'm not sure if anybody else noticed, but it gets stuck in my head.
Yes, why Bill asked me that question, just to clarify, is because there are some egregious practices out there where people pay themselves way too much, and that's actually wrong.
Exactly. And Yes. No, that was the whole reason of the conversation. So there were 3 other CEOs with you on that panel, and it was a really good conversation. I'll link to it later because I listened to it again this morning just to make sure while I got you there that I'm using the correct lines and stuff as well. So, but I want to switch over to Twitter now. We've been getting a lot of questions in, and some of them you answered, but a couple ones I find quite interesting and we haven't talked about yet. So I'm just going to scroll down real quick. And so we talked about hole 29, so that was one of the questions that came in. But the other one is, can you give us an update on whether the Met test results are underway?
Yes, so let me deal with Met test first. We did a first round of high-level Met test work. We did petrography and thin sections. Basically, what it means is you look at the mineralogy under a microscope to see where the gold grains actually sit. It's like a first-pass assessment. We did that at the end of last year. We've got those results. We haven't published them because they're not statistically defendable because of the low number. That's why we couldn't publish it. But the indications are very good. Basically, it appears as if the gold grains are free, so they're not encapsulated by the sulfide around it, means not refractory. That's always the question that people ask about sulfides. And also, it appears as if we have quite a bit of coarse gold. And that's an indication that's good generally, because it generally means that your gold, when there's more gold than you think, and also it means, you know, you can use gravity separation to take it out, which B2 Gold has shown at Otjikoto makes it so much easier to process this material. Now that's what we think. Of course, we need to follow that up. We've done the Met test work. The results have been sent away, early leach test work, and we expect that to come back in the next month. So hopefully during June, certainly in July, I think we'll have a press release on early metallurgical test work, and then obviously we'll follow that up to do more.
Fantastic. Okay, that's really good. So Pete Panda is asking, can you give us a rough range, grams and meterage for a good hit in this style of deposit?
For sure. You know, at my old company, Anglo Gold Ashanti, they used to say 50 gram meters or meter gram per ton. So it's like the interval width multiplied by the grade. So 50 meters at a gram, for example, has always been considered economic, and that a typical Anglo Gold worldwide exploration program would definitely follow up such a hit, excuse my language. So I think that's, for me, my base case was always, you know, my analogy, Otjikoto, which I sold to B2, and that is on average has about a 50 meter thick package, on average probably around a gram, maybe a little bit higher. So that's why I always felt 50 gram meters is good. Anything better is obviously very good or even exceptional. And actually, on that basis, we've color coded our hits on the Twin Hills Central on our press release so far. You can see it in the legend there.
Okay.
And like, for example, the last one, the 150 meters at a gram, that's 3 times what we call the low water mark for a good hit is. So that's an excellent hole.
Okay, fantastic. And you mentioned to me that you'll be uploading the new presentation to the website as soon as we get off of Skype. So
sorry, I've been a little tardy on that.
No, I was looking for the drill map to target hole 29. That was the one that had no significant interceptions. So that's why. Yeah. But I found the map. It was all in the press release, so that was all perfect. Another question we got, and that one came in through CEO.ca, is if Twin Hills were to be acquired, would Osino remain in the country and continue exploration on Otjikoto East and or Goldkuppe?
So we don't know, is the short answer. The long answer is we have lots of options. You know, basically people value this company just on the strength of the Twin Hills Central deposit that's evolving so far. But we've got a large integrated exploration program and lots of optionality. So to answer, you know, that question will be answered when the exit occurs, and you know that exit could occur. It doesn't have to be a clean exit. It could be a partial exit, selling a project, developing many options. So I can't answer that question, but I think there's a good chance that we may be acquired as a whole or just the project. I really don't know.
No,
but you know, for me, my job is to keep those options open and you know.
No, and create some competitive tension as well, I think, because in the back of my mind, and that's an opportunity for you to correct my understanding of Osino, and there's that one logical buyer, which was always B2 Gold, obviously, but we talked about Met results. Do they open the market up for you as well? Do they bring in more competitive attention? Do you expect that to happen once the results show that it's not relevant or just for one company?
I wouldn't say just the Met test results. I think generally the steps, the de-risking steps, they all count. And to me, the most important step is the maiden resource. Once people have got a sense this is going to be 2 million or 3 million or 4 million, whatever. I don't want to raise expectations, by the way. It takes time to get there. So the resource is key, a PEA is key, and as part of that, there will be met test work. But met test work on its own, I don't think it's important, but it's just one step of many.
Yeah. Now, what's your personal exit strategy? Like, what's your plan? Like, let's say you always get asked by career counselors, where do you see yourself in 5 years, right? So let me ask you that question. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
You say to me personally, or like as CEO of Osino?
Well, both, right?
Okay,
Does that go hand in hand?
I'll tell you.
Well, maybe in 3 years there might be a big change, but and 5 years might be completely different. But
yes. I've got a bunch of hats, and I wear them all at the same time. One hat is personally, another one is proud Namibian citizen, like national interest, and a third one is CEO of the company, having shareholders' interests at heart. So that's the main one. And there, the answer is very simple: at the highest price possible, create as much value as possible as we can for shareholders. That doesn't have to be through a sale. There are multiple other things. It could be a partial sale. We could develop the project ourselves. There are many examples. So we're in a good situation. That's as Osino personally. I mean, as the CEO of Osino. For me personally, I love building things, building companies, building concepts. But building mines is often better left to the experts. We're a junior company. We don't have the infrastructure and so forth in place. And therefore, I think, generally speaking, selling before the construction of a mine is the appropriate thing to do. And I think B2Gold did such a fantastic job building that Otjikoto mine. We could have never, ever done that. And that's why I'm very happy that we sold at that time, even though people in hindsight say we may have sold it too cheaply, all that stuff. I think we sold at the right time. But, of course, we will try and fine-tune that with Twin Hills to the best interest of our shareholders.
No, fantastic. We're coming up to our time limit, so I just want to give you an opportunity to sort of put a bow around it and just give us an outlook for the next 3 months, what's happening at Osino, and what kind of news flow can we expect?
Okay, great. I appreciate that. So I think, what really sets Osino apart in this context is that I feel we're not a binary opportunity. We've made the discovery. Most of the risks have been mitigated, finance, geology. So now it's almost like a mechanical process to tick the boxes and see it through. And that's why I think we're a very low risk investment proposition. We'll have lots of catalysts, mainly drilling, met test work, and then towards the end of the year or into early next year, obviously a maiden resource. That's a really big one, and that's it.
No, fantastic. You'll be busy anyway, so that's great. Heye, thank you for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. Everybody else, thanks for your questions. It's great to have this as an interactive format. Follow us here on Twitter. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Instagram. We're on Spotify and other podcast platforms. We really appreciate your feedback. Leave it either here underneath the Twitter feed, comment on YouTube, send us an email. Love to hear your feedback on what we're doing here. So, Heye, have a good weekend. Thanks for joining us, and we'll talk very soon.
Thank you very much. Fantastic, Kai. Thank you.